Hello guys, welcome to B2 Chess. Okay, so in chess we obviously all like queen sacrifices, sacrificing the rook. But today I'm going to show you three of my personal favorite moves and three of my personal best moves in the history of chess. And they might not seem, like as flashy as some 10 move checkmating combination, but anyways, I mean, they are beautiful in their own way, and I'm eager today to show them to you and to see what you think about them. So leave a like and comment below what do you think about them. So let's start. Okay, so in this game we have Garry Kasparov with the black pieces and Anatoly Karpov with the white pieces. You don't necessarily have to look at the ratings. I mean, 27-15, 27-05, some kind of joke, but it's 1984, and by the way, it's their World Championship match, Game 9, and it was, in its own way, a truly legendary match, but we're not going to talk about it. Today we're going to talk about this particular move that I'm really eager to show you, because it's simply stunning. There was no, just in, say in advance, there was no checkmating combination which was, remembered for the next 39 years. It was nothing like that, but this move is truly legendary in its own way. Okay, so let's start. The opening really isn't that important. We have d4, d5, c4, e6. This is classic Queen's Gambit declined. This opening we have seen a lot in their match, and we have it actually transposes to some kind of English opening. We see that Karpov doesn't have a c pawn, Kasparov doesn't have an e pawn, but as I said, the opening isn't really important because in their matches, and actually it seems to be some kind of tendency in the World Championships, they tend to repeat the openings again and again and again, which is very interesting. Knight f6, bishop g2, and actually we don't necessarily have to analyze all of that, but the important thing is that Garry leaves himself with an isolated pawn. This pawn doesn't have any neighbors, so d pawn, it doesn't have a c pawn or an e pawn close to it, so it's isolated. It's not always bad, but it gives some kind of uh, complexity to the position. So let's see how Garry handles it. Bishop e3, rook e8, and we see how Karpov, who is a very obviously positional player, who is a very solid player, and who was obviously known to be the guy who doesn't necessarily want to complete some of his own plans, but he rather would restrict his opponent's plans, and that's why he was, pleased to um, send Garry to this type of position, which is not, um, easy to play. And this isolated pawn, I mean, it's not really understandable if it's good or bad for the position. So bishop d4, bishop c5, Garry wants to trade the bishops, and Karpov, doesn't. Well, he really doesn't, and Karpov, makes this, and Karpov doesn't really, insist, so he trades the bishops, and we see this maneuvering style of game, which Karpov obviously, thrived in, and we see him slowly maneuvering his pieces. Garry offers a trade of the queens, and Karpov goes for it because he thinks that this endgame with this isolated pawn might be a little bit better, and he's absolutely correct. The evaluation stays at 0.2, and the main reason is actually this isolated pawn, because the activity of the pieces is almost the same. So let's see how both players are going to play it. h3, preventing anything from coming to g4. h5, trying to play h4 to make structure a little bit more compromised. a3, g6, and e3, beautifying. King g7, king h2, rook c4, and here Karpov, well, he doesn't trade because he doesn't really have to. Well, he could trade, but then you see the problem. Kasparov gets rid of his isolated pawn. So he says, no, I'm just going to improve my position. I'm going to play bishop e3, bishop f3. And while you're overextending on that side, I'm going to try to punish you for that. King g2, rook 7 c5, and here Karpov trades the rooks. And you would say, why? Well, can't he just do this? Well, he can, but the problem is that you give Karpov activity. And that's exactly the reason why he chose to trade now, because the rook has some infiltration. So rook d8, rook d6, targeting this pawn, might not even end up too good for Kasparov. So he takes the rook, leaves himself with an isolated pawn, which Karpov, by the way, he could take. He absolutely could. This trade would be good. But then rook c2, and if you play before rook a2, and you are up a pawn, yes, but you're slightly passive. So rook d4, Karpov goes for another trade. By the way, if Kasparov would have traded, he would have the isolated pawn too. Why would he do that? Well, because Kasparov's pieces are, stuck in a way. So they can't really move, because they have to guard this pawn, because if Kasparov loses this pawn, frankly he'll lose, because this pawn becomes a passer. A passing passed pawn is a pawn who is trying to go to the last rank and who doesn't have any pawns that can capture it. So as you can see, no c pawn, no e pawn, and if Karpov wins this pawn, it's just, it will be very easy to promote. Or if he won't promote, he will cause lots of problem. But we see Karpov actually insisting on the trade of the rooks, and Kasparov has to go for it, because you can retreat, but that's too passive, I would say. Sorry, a little bit of spoiler. Rook d4, e d4. Now we see both players having isolated pawn. King e7. Kasparov, completing the principles of the endgame, bringing his king. Knight a2, a very interesting move, trying to go to b4, obviously, targeting this pawn and this pawn. Bishop c8, defending this pawn in advance. Knight b4 as promised, and king came to the center, and objectively speaking, this position is just an easy draw. I don't know how you would pose any problems. Obviously, if you play this position with white on lower levels, you should obviously try for a win, because there are many things that your opponent can mess up. But on this level, it's objectively a draw. And we are going to see now how Karpov, who is often called the best endgame player of all time, will try to make it work. So knight g8, h4 he locks this pawn, so Kasparov can't really advance. Knight to h6, king to f2, and we see once again maneuvering, so they're just, the knight is making some steps, g8, h6, f5, I would say this knight is a very good piece. But now Karpov is going to say, that's how I'm going to try to win this position. You would say, well, bishop is better than the knight. Why would he do that? Is he trying to lose? The thing is, Kasparov obviously takes all the pawns. This is a light squared bishop, so let's start with that. And all the pawns, or almost all the pawns, are on dark squares, which means this bishop doesn't have any role in the game. So what Karpov is going to try to do is maneuver his knight, bring his king, and he will try to outplay Kasparov and he's going to say that, well, my knight is better because my knight can see your pawns. My knight can move on all squares. Your bishop can only see half of the square. So that's how I'm going to, try doing it. Okay, so bishop takes f5, and now Karpov's knight is hanging, so he obviously brings it forward. Knight e3, bishop b1, and b4. Well, b4 is a good move, obviously. It's controlling the movement of an a-pawn, so hadn't he done that, maybe a5, maybe, I don't know, b4, trying to induce some weaknesses, try to come forward to the king and do some stuff, but Karpov says b4. Okay, so restricting once again. Well, if you know anything about Karpov, he was called a bow constrictor, which basically meant that his style was to, strangle his opponent positionally. And we see, the first steps of Karpov of trying to do it. So now Kasparov can move this pawn. He can take that one, but it's this pawn and this pawn will become weakness, while this king can protect both his weaknesses. Okay, so and he can move this pawn, and this king is already standing very nicely. So the only piece that Kasparov can move without doing any harm is the bishop. So let's see what Karpov was going to do next. Well, it's now Kasparov's turn, and he goes for this g takes h4 move, which is an inaccuracy. As I said before, this bishop doesn't see any pawns, except for this one, but it's very safely protected. While these pawns, I don't know why Kasparov did that, but knight can obviously get to them. And now, please, I would like to ask you this question. Raise your hand if in this position you would play a very natural looking move g takes h4. I would raise two hands. In this position, after g takes h2, g takes h4 by Garry Kasparov, on move 47, Anatoly Karpov played this absolutely brilliant, stunning, legendary move, knight g2. What? Why? Why would he do that? I mean, just g takes h3 and you're down a pawn in an endgame. It's okay to sacrifice your pawns in the opening, even in the middle game. I mean, in the middle game, it's obviously some common thing to do that. But does that in the end game when there are very limited pieces on the board? Why? Well, let's return. Had Karpov played g takes h4 here. Yeah, g takes h4. Karpov's king doesn't have any access because this square is covered. If he goes there, the bishop covers, and the bishop won't move from this diagonal. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it won't move from this diagonal because it's the best. It sees half of the board and cuts very crucial squares. But after g takes h4, this square is covered, this is covered, and these squares are also covered. And while you'll be stuck here maneuvering this knight, I will set up some kind of defensive configuration, and it's a fortress. You can break. So this absolutely brilliant move, knight to g2, sacrificing the pawn, gives Karpov a route to, come here. Well, obviously not here because this is covered, but he'll go here, 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 and potentially just walk in, Incredible idea. So obviously Kasparov takes because it's a free pawn, H takes g3 check, king takes g3, and now king e6. Knight to a4 check, we already see. Well, if you try to hang on to this pawn, because the idea is obviously here and here, if you play here, I don't know, if you play bishop g6, then knight to f4, and if you go bishop to, let's say, f7, just king h4, And let's not forget that some endgame like this is lost. It's just lost. You go here, I go here. In your Zugzwang, you can go f5. I'm just gonna go f4. Your pawns can move. Your king has to move away from this pawn because this square is covered. And that's it. Now it's over. Absolutely over. You can resign. Even at, my level, you can resign. But king e6. Okay, knight f4, so Kasparov loses this pawn. Because, as we saw previously, there was nothing that he could do. King goes back to e6, and now knight f4 check. Karpov repeats. And now king g4. And we see this idea. Bang, 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 bang. He tries to maneuver in Kasparov's camp. Bishop c2, bishop can only move this diagonal, cutting this square. If he doesn't, I mean, the king gets in even, quicker. King to h5, bishop d1. Ah, now you target this pawn, yes? So obviously I have to come back and protect? No. Counter attack. King g6. I can lose this pawn, but my knight is better than your bishop. Is your bishop ever going to try to touch any of these pawns? No, because he can't see them. But my knight can. And Kasparov protects his pawn. And Karpov just says knight takes d5. Pawns hanging. And this pawn as well. But had he taken this one, I mean, there's some trouble, Bishop takes f3 and this pawn is not going to go anywhere. You can shake hands and agree for a draw. So after this move, we have king to d7, knight takes e6. Karpov was down just a little bit of attention. Karpov was down a pawn on move 47. Now he is up 2, and it's all because of his conscious decision to sacrifice that pawn on g3. And now we see how his genius idea, is working. So king takes f6, Karpov is up 2 pawns, and he's just attacking the bishop, protecting his pawn, prevents this king from coming in via b3. Bishop c6, knight d3, bishop g2, and they're just maneuvering. But keep in mind that Karpov is up 2 pawns, and somewhere here, yeah, bishop g2 was a fatal mistake. You would ask why? Well, because knight d6. And even though you lose this pawn, you can't protect. Well, you can take on b5, but king a4. And your knight has to. Yes, that's all true. That's all very nice. But knight d6, and after king takes a3, b5. And you're going to have to sacrifice your bishop for this pawn, and it's over. So after knight to d6, Garry Kasparov resigned this game, and this absolutely stunning idea of knight to g2, I mean, it's been 39 years, but I still don't know if anyone, I don't know, apart from Magnus, would play this idea and be confident that it's the only, try for a win, because as I said earlier, just g takes h4 and it's a draw, because everything's covered. Superb idea, perfect execution. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so now we move on to the second of my favorite best moves in the history of chess, and the year is 1998. It's the tournament in Linares, elite tournament, truly, because all the greats of the past and the present competed there. And in today's game, it's Veselin Topalov with the white pieces, and Alexei Shirov with the black pieces. And this idea, in a way, is even more fascinating. And we're actually going to look at this game from the black's perspective, because this move was played by Alexei Shirov. Okay, so let's start. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, and we see... No, it's not a King's Indian, it's a Grunfeld defense. Grunfeld defense is, you know, a very difficult opening, a very technical opening, and we see why very quickly. Because after cd5, knight takes d5, e4, knight takes c3, b takes c3, you would ask, well, wait, doesn't a chess player have to fight for the center? Yes, that's the general concept, but once you get, you know, better and better and better, you start to learn when you can, you know, start to break the rules. And this opening, Grunfeld defense, is in a way just that, because white has an absolutely ginormous center. But black's idea is that they're going to play c5, bishop g7, moves like bishop b5 check, maybe, and maybe queen a4. Oh, sorry, queen a5, and they're going to try to, you know, destabilize the center. So let's see. It's a very, you know, tough opening to understand, to learn, and I really mean it. Bishop g7, bishop b5 check. We see this strange looking move because black just plays c6, right? Well, yes, of course, but now the knight can go to c6, so that's a little, you know, little subtle idea. Bishop a4 and castles. Very, you know, same opening, I would say. Knight to e2, knight to d7, and the game is very strange, you know, very strange looking, because, as I said before, the player with the black pieces is trying to fight for the center and try to break it. But so far, Shirov is just, you know, isn't doing it. So how is he going to play? Well, e5. That was the idea. You know, this pawn break. What is Topalov going to do? He's going to play f3. A very interesting move. A certain Benjamin Feingold would be very mad at Topalov for playing it, but you know, Topalov was a world champion, for God's sake. But so we can, you know, it's alright. Queen e7, a nice developing move. Bishop e3 is not so far nothing special. Knight to b6, kicking out the bishop, bishop e6, trying to trade it, and knight c4. Knight c4, a very interesting move, attacking the bishop. Bishop retreats to c1 and b5. b5 is trying to solidify this knight on this absolutely dominant square on c4, where it's just, you know, where it's some menace, you know. The bishop, I don't know, goes to b2, there is always a triple fork, so you have to be careful. f4, Topalov is trying to be aggressive, but just e takes d4, knight takes d4, and bishop g4, attacking the rook. Very easy, rook moves out of the way, queen to c5, pinning the knight, king to h1, logical move. That was, you know, the only time when in the GM's game, king to h1 or any, you know, king move was logical. a5, taking space, h3, bishop retreats to d7, a4, ba4, bishop a2. You'd say, well, why not just bishop takes a4? You played a4 to do it, right? Well, not exactly, because then comes the move knight to b6, and if you try to retreat, you get a4, and if you retreat even further, well, bishop d4, and if you, well, you can't recapture, so just down a piece, you know. Okay, so that's a very good idea, very subtle idea, very stylish idea. But after bishop e2, we get bishop e8. Strange move, but what it does is it opens up the rook. e5, getting space, knight to b6, f5, and Topalov, as we can see, is just having a massive advantage on the GM level, of course. On our level 1.2, you can lose in one move. f5, just wrecking Shirov's position. What is he gonna do? Did I just mm, did I lie? Maybe Topalov played a brilliant move after all. Well, Shirov is trying to fight back. But here comes a very bad mistake by Topalov. Maybe they were in time trouble. I mean, it's move 25. Now it's move 26, so yeah, basically it probably was a time trouble, but Bishop D2 allows a very timely move. Not a difficult move, but a timely move. Knight b4. Of course you can take because you're pinned, but after queen takes a4, knight takes e2, queen takes a2, and bishop takes e5, like simply solved all the problems. They're up a pawn, and somehow, after being down 1.2, they're not even lost. They're better actually. Yeah, so it's as I said, Grunfeld is very difficult, even for advanced players, even for these guys. F takes g6, h takes g6, bishop g5. You see Topalov still trying to be as aggressive as possible, but now just rook d5, protecting the bishop. Topalov is doubling up, but just bishop moves out of the way. c4, and here a very interesting exchange happens. So bishop d4, so they take the knight, we take the rook, we take the rook, we take the bishop, and no, we don't take the pawn, because in this position there's I'm sorry for my pronunciation, but a Zwischenzug, an in-between move, rook e8. Well, if you go here, well, there might be some trouble after move like bishop f6. Are you gonna get mated? You shouldn't really get mated, so to gain time you will play rook e8, because white can't protect this pawn, so the queen should move out of the way, and we take the pawn. The difference is that the rook is now active. Bishop h6, the mate on g7 is threatened, but obviously Shirov doesn't blunder that. He plays rook e5, an exotic move, but I believe the best, the computer's choice. Rook f3, and Shirov goes for a queen trade, because this endgame is lost. Well, it's a lesson more for the beginners, because if you trade queens down to pawns, I mean, there's something you're doing wrong. In very rare situations, maybe or not, but in this situation, you're done if you trade the queens. But queen e1, the idea is maybe to double up on the f file, but no. We see how well, first of all, a very nice tactic by Topalov. You would say, well, that's a free rook, and I'm going to just trade the queens and I'm going to win, but queen g7 and you're done. And if you take with the queen, well, I don't know why would you do that, but even still it's a draw, apparently. Queen takes a5, and once again there's no point in doing that. So f6, and we trade the rooks, but we don't trade the queens, obviously, because Topalov isn't stupid, and Shirov obviously says, well, please man, let's trade the queens, come on. I'll be up 2 pawns, I'm just gonna win. Sorry, I'm not, well, let's try it, why not? And now, I mean, well, being down 2 pawns and when threatened with a queen exchange, I mean, you just, I don't know, play queen a3 to threaten some nasty stuff over here, and if your opponent is, silly enough to do something like this, well, you just made them, right? But in this position, Vasilin Topalov goes for a, I would say, a slightly controversial decision of trading the queens into this opposite color bishop endgame. And this idea, and his idea was basically, well, I'm just gonna go here, force your move to pawn, force your pawn to move, and just play bishop c3. And you can't play d4, you can't promote because this square is covered. I'm gonna bring my king, you know, g1, f2, e3, d4. Just a draw, you know? Nothing to see here. So, and that's exactly what starts to happen, you know? Both players, well, obviously this very nice move h4, preventing g5 or anything like that, because, well, it's the theory goes that more pawns get traded, well, the easier it is to draw. So both players start bringing their kings, you know, king to e6. Very nice principle to play by Shirov. Obviously, idea here, push or help this pawn promote. King to g1, and my goodness. My goodness. The engine doesn't even realize how brutal this move is. Okay, so raise your hand once again. If you would play here, try to push this pawn so it wouldn't be capturable by this bishop and just go boom, 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 boom. Easy, right? But it's not winning. It's not winning. Because at the end of the day, Topalov was correct. You shouldn't lose this. Right? Shouldn't. Opposite color bishops. I'm getting goosebumps just explaining this move. Because in this position, absolute just, well, the idea was that Shirov doesn't want to bring his king here because Topalov is also quite quick, right? So Shirov wants to go to the king side and just cause problems there because these pawns, I mean, they restrict the bishop. Bishop can't, you know, go to the other diagonals because of the pawns, and will just promote. So to go to the king side, Alexei Shirov plays bishop to h3. Yeah, you see the evil bar. As I said, the engine doesn't even realize how absolutely just magnificent this move. It's mesmerizing, you know, in a way. What? Well, just g takes h3, right? And you're down a bishop for 2 pawns, right? And these pawns can't go anywhere, right? One tempo decides the game. King f5. You bring the king, right? King e4. You take the pawn. The cage is now closed. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Alexei Shirov, with this absolutely stunning bishop sacrifice on h3, he sacrificed the full bishop to open up the road for this king. And it's over. If you don't take the bishop, I'm still going to go king f5. And you can't take it. Because king e4, and that's the same position, yeah? And you can't leave this pawn, right? Because if we do the same thing and you'll go, well, if I take this bishop, it's over, right? So I'm just gonna, you know, I'm not gonna let you bring your king here in the center because it's deadly, right? Well, now I'm gonna take. And now I have 3 passed pawns. So the game went g takes h3. Topalov was like, wait, did this guy just sacrifice the bishop? Yes, he did. And he went on to do exactly this thing. And now the king is just in. And it's over. You cannot sacrifice the bishop at any moment because the pawn game is obviously lost. And it's over. Topalov resigned. Being up a bishop. Here, opposition, king c2, only move. I'm pretty sure after finding bishop h3, for the found king c2, right? You can't stop both pawns, that's the thing. d3 check. King e3, just a3. You'd say a3, losing a pawn, d2. And there's nothing you can do. You just queen and you win. Wow. That's probably like somewhere on, for me, it's, this idea is somewhere like on the same level of Karpov's knight to g2. Absolutely stunning, you know? It might seem a little bit more flashy, but for me, the fact that the the computer doesn't even realize. You saw the bar just going, well, you know what, this guy is just out of even my comprehension. That's how good he. Yeah, just bishop h4. What a savage move by Alexei Shir. And the final one. Okay, so for this one we're going to the 1974 Chess Olympiad. It's Anatoly Karpov once again against Wolfgang Unziker of Germany. And don't mind the ratings, you know. It's obviously not a rating. That is why the video was called 3 of the most brilliant chess moves of all time. But for me, I have to be honest, this is my favorite. Like, you know, it's like the Messi of chess for me. Alright, I don't have many things to say. Let's just start. So we have e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. Ruy Lopez, one of the most common, maybe the most common opening like ever on the top level. It's been around for centuries, and it's not even an exaggeration. So back in the day, knight to f6, Berlin defense was simply not as popular. It was popularized, in fact, in the year 2000, but we're going to talk about that later, I promise. So we have bishop b5, a6, main line, bishop a4, knight f6, and castle. That's the main line. We don't obviously have to analyze all the moves, especially in the opening. My beginners players would ask why not just capture the pawn. You obviously put the knight here to take it. Well, it's an option, but it's called open variation of the Ruy Lopez, but there's a lot of main lines. I mean, the mainest main line is d4, b5, bishop b3, and d5. After which you take on e5 and you enjoy just a chaotic and open game. But we don't get that, and moreover, it's not in Karpov's style. So we get all the main moves: bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, and d6. So we get this maneuvering type of Ruy Lopez, c3, so that knight to a5, which is a typical idea in Spanish and Italian openings, wouldn't guarantee you a trade of bishop for knight, because this bishop is an absolute monster. But we'll see this knight e5 move later. So we have castles, h3, knight to a5, and bishop to c2. Obviously we don't want to lose this bishop, so black capitalizes on the one time and plays c5, weakening this square, but so far nobody can get there, really. So d4, long awaited pawn break, and you can't really, as black goes like this, it's not an awful decision, but why would you leave yourself with an isolated backwards pawn? That's just, that's not the way to go. So bishop knight bd2, and knight to c6 back, because this knight didn't have much mobility from this a5 square. d5, shutting the center. Knight to d8, so maybe some ideas of going knight to b7, maybe c4, knight c5, but it's even then there might be some nuances. So a4, fighting on that queen side, and obviously as black, if you're a beginner, you start going well just ba4, bishop a4. We trade the bishop, we trade the pawns, right? Not every trade is equal, you know. Uh, it's it's this, funny chess maths in which one doesn't necessarily equal one, because one guy in event of this trade would open up the rook, and another would give himself a weakness for the rest of the game. So a slightly not equal trade. So Unzeka goes rook b8, and he invites this trade ab5, ab5. The rook is open, but so far no infiltration spots, covered by queen, covered by bishop, queen, rook. So far no benefits, and now a very nice move, b4. B4 is intending, in an event of the trade, to liberate this c file. If Unziker goes, I don't know, bishop d7, you play bishop d3, you play something like queen e2, and by the time you bring the rook, I play, let's say, if we play bishop b2, and if you try to be aggressive with knight to h5, we bring the rook, and we are fighting for the files, and it's a complex battle, but we've opened up the c file, and the queen on c7 is slightly misplaced. So that's probably not the way to go. So Unziker doesn't go c takes b4, which was not the good move. Knight to b7 was, and that's exactly what he played. Knight to b7 and knight to f1. Might seem strange, but it's actually a very popular reroutement idea. The idea is to go to e3 or g3 and potentially to f5 and generate some kind of attack if necessary. Now bishop to d7, which is a very natural developing move. You want to connect the rooks and fight for the open lines, for the L file, most notably. Bishop to e3, attacking the pawn, but so far no threats. And rook to a8. Well, the general concept in this, positions when you have rooks facing each other, you don't want to take. You don't want to be the guy who takes, because yeah, you trade the piece, but you now give your opponent a file, and in these, closed positions, it's very important, and moreover, your opponent has multiple infiltration spots. For me, it's a very tough sport. You can go to a2, you can go to a3, double up, something like this. So yeah, not a good idea. So Unziker, so Karpov plays queen to d2. The idea is, if Unziker will go for the trade, now he takes to the rook, and now he controls the file, and there's no rook a8. So rook fc8 was played. The idea is probably cb4, and pressure on the bishop. So Karpov, prophylactic, bishop d3, attacking the pawn, forcing the bishop to be passive, stay on this diagonal. And g6. G6 is an exotic move, that's for sure. Not so clear what the idea was, but I think that the idea is probably, if Karpov would have gone knight g3, which he did, by the way. If Karpov tried to go to f5, now this square is covered, but the pawn. So there is no, knight h4, knight f5, nothing of this sort. But knight to g3 still happens, just a slow developing move. Now bishop to f8. The idea is to reroute to g7 and potentially to prepare some kind of f5. to unlock the center and make your bishops more powerful. So rook a2, a very interesting move, that's for sure. The idea is obviously to double up, and if you try to prevent that with rook takes a2, queen takes a2, you can go to a8. And now white controls the a file and is potentially doubling up. So a very subtle idea by Karpov, which he just laughed, and on which he, made his career as chess player, and for which he was famous for. Okay, so after rook a2, Unziker decides to make a very important decision, which will actually impact the game in a very uh, important fashion. He goes c4. Yeah, that move seems strange. I mean, it might look more natural to go, I don't know, cb4, because after cb4 you control the file, but as was mentioned, you don't really have any infiltration spots. No c2, no c1, you go to c3, you don't have any benefit from that. So yeah, cb4 isn't as good as it looks. So the idea is to go c4 and basically shut down the center. Yeah, my bishops are extremely bad, but so are yours. And the knights aren't really jumping. This square is covered, that square is covered. If you try to go, I don't know, here and here, I'll just take. So what is Karpov going to do in order to lift this blockade? Well, he goes bishop b1. Bishop b1 is a very mysterious move. I don't really understand the idea, but well, let's see. Maybe Karpov will justify that. Oh wait, no, actually, bishop was hanging. That's my intermediate chess brain is starting to kick in. Obviously, bishop b1 trying to safeguard the bishop. Happened. Queen d8. Queen d8 is a nice move. The idea is now you can take on a2, and you can actually go rook a and challenge Karpov on this open line. And if you trade all the rooks, which would look something like, I don't know, hypothetically, let's go, I don't know, let's go knight to h2, maybe reroute here or here. I just go rook a2, queen a2, and rook a8. That's it. And now I am the one controlling the file. And now, in this position, try to guess what Karpov. It's simply stunning what he did. I'll give you 5 seconds. You can pause, you don't have to pause, but you're probably not going to guess the move anyway, unless you know it. In this position, Anatoly Karpov plays the move bishop to a7. Bishop to a7. As much as I love Stockfish, as much as I like it absolutely crushing its engine compatriots, and as much as I love its ideas in the opening and the middle game, it calls this move an accuracy, but in this particular case, the Stockfish should really shut up, because bishop to a7. My god. The idea, you can't challenge me on the a file. I am now going to double up. I'm now going to absolutely dominate your pieces. This knight has no moves. This knight can't really jump anywhere. I mean, if you go to c7, then what? If you go to h5, I'll take. The bishop can go to g7 and it's of the same quality, of the same, bad quality as it used to be. This bishop has literally no squares apart from e8. So what are you going to do? And despite the engine not particularly loving it. From a human standpoint, this position is a nightmare to play. Let's turn the board for a second. What's your move here? Guys, what is your move? And the beauty of this move is that it's very easy to make a mistake. Say, well, I'm just going to go bishop to e7. Well, now my plan. If you shuffle back and forth, I don't know. You say, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know, bishop f8. Well, I'm just going to go rook a6. And now you can't go to g7. So okay, bishop e7. Now what? I'm doubling up. There are already ideas of I don't know, bishop b6. And it's a nightmare. You go king to g7. It's an absolute domination. I can even allow myself to start rewriting so slowly, but you can't do anything about it. Knight to e1. You go back. I can even go f4 actually. I mean, it's a good move. But Karpov wouldn't do this. I mean, he already made all these preparatory steps, so he would probably go something like queen to c1. Yeah. If you go back to g7, for example, I can triple up. Yes, I can triple up, and it's absolutely funny, this position, but now there's actually bishop b6, and you can't even shuffle back and forth because yeah, bishop b6, and you have to sacrifice your queen. This position is miserable, right? This position is just miserable. You don't have the open file, knight has no moves, these bishops are just pathetic, this rook is pathetic, knight doesn't have any good jumps. That's what Karpov does. Bishop to a7. Wow. Knight to e8. Let's just see how Karpov cleans it up, because even though the engine says plus 0.6, from a human standpoint, it's something like mate and 10, because you don't know what to do. You're trapped in this absolutely humiliating cage. Bishop c2, we see this plan in motion to double up on the a file. Unseeker makes some moves, but they don't really have any importance because they're useless, because he doesn't have any useless moves. Bishop e8, and Karpov just slightly, subtly transforms the position, reroutes his pieces, goes f4, yeah, that's what you like to see. And yeah, I mean, Unseeker starts to make mistakes in this position. e4 is the best move, but Karpov made his opponent so like confused in this cage where he has no particularly good move, so he plays a mistake, he plays f6. And you might say, well, why? You know, it's not about chess anymore, it's just impossible to be locked in for so long and not having any good moves. Psychologically, it's just terrible. So I personally understand Unseeker, and he falls apart. f5, g5. Once again a mistake, because why would you entomb yourself even further? But once again, it's not about chess. g5, bishop c2, bishop to f7, knight to g3, knight to b7, bishop to d1. We try to take this diagonal, maybe go bishop to h5. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. Queen e8, and in this position, raise your hand. If you would go, once again, I would lift two hands. Anatoly Karpov says, no, we are doing this trade on my terms. Queen d1. Yeah, that's what Karpov does, because after bishop h5, You can actually go even queen h5. Yeah, to showcase how bad this position is for black. Impossible endgame to defend. Absolutely impossible. Bishop to h8. Bishop to h8. Who? I mean, it's not often you see players playing bishop to h8, but it's a necessity at this point, and it's hopeless. It really is. Despite there being no material deficiency, it's just hopeless. Yeah. So let's back up. So, despite Engine not loving some of these moves, from a human standpoint, Karpov was a nightmare to play against. So we have knight to d8, rook a3, king to f8. We already see Unseeker shuffling back and forth with his king. Why? He doesn't have any moves. So rook 1a2, he protects his second rank. This rook has no moves, that rook has no moves. And Anatoly Karpov is so freaking legendary. He paralyzed 10, sorry, 13 points of material. 13, no, wait. Yeah, 13 points of material. Actually, yes, 16 points of material. Yeah. This rook has no moves, 5 points. This rook has no moves, 5 points. This knight has no moves, because if you go to e6 you get captured, 13 points. This bishop is like, a little child who can only, okay, that was a terrible analogy, but you get my point. So 5, 10, 13, 16. Wolfgang Unzicker plays without 16 points of money. That's terrible. King g8, knight to g4. I mean, every position has its own breaking point, and Karpov shows it by playing this absolute stunning move, knight to g4. Knight to g4? Wait. What? That just loses the bishop, doesn't it? Well, knight takes h5. And if you take, the move is... Well, I give you 2 seconds because it's a rather simplish tactic, but yeah. Knight takes f6 check. Bishop f6, queen h5. And the most incredible point is that even if you don't spot knight takes f6, you go, I don't know. Let's say you go bishop b6. You're down a full bishop. Evil bar shows minus 0.8. We're down a bishop. But the position is so bad that even despite being down full bishop, you're just -1. It's dying. Obviously, Unseeker doesn't go for it. He goes king f8, but now Karpov reroutes, and Karpov takes, finally. He relieves the pressure, he goes queen h5, paralyzing the knight. Knight goes back, and my god. Well, we already saw that the endgame is just terrible, right? Because there are no moves, right? Let's do this typical thing that we've already gotten used to, right? Raise your hand if you would go queen e8, knight e8, and something like knight to h5. And you would claim, well, how can I lose this? This position is miserable. Well, it is, right? You're absolutely correct. But Anatoly Karpov in this position goes queen g6. He doesn't take. And the thing is, Unseeker shouldn't take either. This pawn is a hero. Because this knight really now has absolutely, well, obviously, apart from knight b7, this knight has no moves. This knight has no useful moves. and if you try to go and win this pawn, you're too slow. Any knight to f5, you can go here, and it's over. And it's over. You, you're 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 not down any material, but the position is +7, 7. And I'm pretty sure that if you let this position be analyzed by a stronger engine, it would say even like bigger evaluations. And the thing is, you can't even go back and forth. You would say, well, how do you break through? Show me your breakthrough. Well, first of all, the pawn is hanging, right? So you would probably go something like here, right? But now the rook is hanging. There's not a single move that you can play without losing something. So after queen g6, king f8, and knight to h5, threatening the bishop, and practically forcing Hunziker to trade the queens into this absolutely terrible endgame, Hunziker resigned. And this game is an absolutely brutal showcase of what Anatoly Karpov used to do to his opponent. Absolutely stunning. Alright guys, this was my top 3 best moves of all time. Let me know in the comments if you liked the video. And yeah, I hope to see you on the next video. This was B2Chess.